Yeah, mute everybody. All right, so welcome to today's topic of Build a Better Beehive. This is going to cover the position of the secretary. A couple things to go over just at the start. As I had said, this is being recorded. So remember, this is not a tiled meeting. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Um, Please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. If you need a question, to get out there so you don't forget it, type it in the chat. We will cover it at the end. We'll make sure all questions are answered in the chat. There will be a poll at the end. So please fill out that poll before you leave. We will send that out, and that kind of helps us with keeping track of the topics and what people want to see. And then the videos are available they're on YouTube, but they are not published on YouTube. They are only available through the link that you can find on the Grand Lodge webpage or in Ease. A couple things coming up. Next week is going to be the treasurer position. We're continuing on with this Build a Better Beehive. And we'll have the junior warden, the senior warden, worshipful master. And then we're going to be getting into, looks like Masonic Research Societies and some word that I can't pronounce. But hey, Terry Tilton. The other thing that's going on continually is the Show and Tell Challenge. If your lodge is interested to be part of the Show and Tell Challenge, it's answering basically the three questions in a creative way through content, essays, poetry, art, etc. What is Freemasonry in Minnesota? What will your life and legacy say about Freemasonry? How will you help others find their way to the rewards of the craft? And without further ado, Build a Better Beehive Secretary with Right Worshipful Keith Ryerson, First Brother Justin Thompson, and Brother Zeb. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Sorry.
Yeah, Dennis Robson.
All right. Let me just get this thing up here. Well, welcome all. As Mike said, I'm Worshipful Brother Justin Thompson. I'm a member of the Grand Lodge Leadership Committee, past master and current secretary of Arcana Lodge number 187 in beautiful Northeast Minneapolis.
Good evening, brothers. My name is Zeb Dudek. I am a past master of Meridian Lodge number 25 in Chatfield, where I am currently the secretary. I have been the secretary of multiple Masonic bodies, and I enjoy bringing a modern and mainstream approach to the position.
So let me start by first directing your attention over to the left-hand side of your screen, where you'll see a little spoked wheel here, where the outer rim of the wheel are tenets of Freemasonry. In the center, you see an individual lodge brother, and connecting that lodge brother to these tenets are different offices of your Masonic lodge. So we're going to go through the secretary here and kind of talk about how they are the connecting piece between an individual lodge member and the brotherhood, or the tenet of brotherhood in Freemasonry.
Brothers, the jewel of the secretary is the crossed quills. The crossed quills are the oldest tool to record knowledge and learning. They symbolize justice and equity, and they necessitate education and self-improvement with justice and impartiality.
So the secretary duty being kind of large and encompassing is not something we're going to cover in all of its detail in the 15-20 minutes here that we're presenting. But we are going to try and cover on a kind of a general overview of the secretary position, breaking it down into three primary duties, the first of which is facilitating communication. Now, this can be communication between individual lodge members, from lodge to lodge, between your lodge and the Grand Lodge, and between Grand Lodges, of course, going through your Grand Lodge. Don't communicate directly with other Grand Lodges if you can avoid it. Your second duty is records keeping. That's meeting minutes, Grand Lodge reports, historical lodge records, membership information, all that kind of stuff. And third, last but certainly not least, working with the treasurer. As you recall from your ritual, it's your job to receive all monies and pay them to the treasurer, which means giving them bills, sending out checks on their behalf, but also recording the finances. A lodge secretary should have their own lodge financial records that they periodically, kind of work with the treasurer to make sure that they're in sync and that we're all on the same financial page in that regard. You will see that nowhere in these duties does it say anything about running the lodge, and that's a good reason for that. The secretary does not run the lodge. There is a clear distinction between what the secretary does and who runs the lodge, which is the worshipful master.
Brothers, you will see quite often that the secretary ends up doing a lot of the planning for a lodge. It would be a safe bet that most secretaries are guilty of this. I myself am guilty of this. The secretary should not be preparing agendas, scheduling degrees and practices, planning and coordination of events, examples which are fundraisers, dinners, special events, etc. The secretary should not be an office or a position that is feared. If you walk into a lodge today and say, "Who wants to be the secretary?" everybody runs away. That should not be the case, and multiple people should be volunteering. The age-old tradition of secretary for life should not be an acceptable thought or practice within your lodge. They are a simple bookkeeper and a point of reference. It should really be a position that is easier than any of the other elected officers.
Wow. All right. So we talked about the general duties, but obviously that leaves a lot of information that still needs to be figured out. So there are three primary places to find these duties. The first, as we talked about, is the ritual, to observe the worshipful master's will and pleasure, record the proceedings of the lodge, receive all monies and pay them in to the treasurer. You know that part. Your Minnesota Masonic Manual, your charge as secretary at your installation kind of covers some of the details of your duties as well. And of course, the Minnesota Masonic Code. Now, we're not expecting every secretary to know the code backwards and forwards, but you should know it well enough to know where to find the information you're looking for. Make a digital copy so you can control F and keyword search, those kind of things.
All right, guys, utilize your resources. The best lesson I learned in my professional career was from an instructor. His name was Mr. Cherry, while I was attending the U.S. Army Quartermaster Center in school. He said, reference the book without error. Learn how to find the information you are looking for, and you are golden. Know where to look and what you're looking for. Don't overwhelm yourself with all the information that is available to you. Just know where to look. You don't have to have an answer or be the expert on everything at the moment you're asked a question.
Exactly. Oh, I almost forgot one. And Right Worshipful Brother Keith has produced a kind of a cheat sheet where you can find the most important parts of the Minnesota Masonic Code. And that is available, I assume, through the Grand Lodge website. Okay, which takes us to Grandview. I see a lot of people here who are current secretaries, and most of you should know what Grandview is, how Grandview works, at least a little bit at this point. well, we'll kind of cover a little bit. So Grandview is a membership database and a communications platform. It is recently adopted by the Grand Lodge of Minnesota and used as a centralized location for lodge resources, lodge records, things of that nature. Grandview serves 41 Masonic jurisdictions, 6,400 lodges, and over 500,000 Brother Masons. All this information is on these servers, which I'm no tech expert, but I have been told are quite secure. And the point of this is to make records keeping communication easier, designed to make the secretary's job simpler. Year-end reports are an easy click away. An additional bonus to this is lodge members are able to maintain their own info, which takes a lot of the pressure of records updating off the secretary and puts it on our members.
Greatest thing since sliced bread, hands down. As a secretary, this is the best tool that has become available to us in quite some time. It is everything you need in one place. Learn this tool and master it. Use it to your benefit. Start off with just the basics and then build from that. Your goal should be that in time, you utilize all the available features to your benefit. The more data you have and the more accurate it is, the more powerful the tool becomes for you. If you put the system to work, it ends up working for you and allows you more time to do other things like relax and actually enjoy lodge and don't come all stressed. This tool allows you to better balance your personal life and your lodge duties as a secretary. The secretary's responsibilities are still very important, but this tool will make the job less daunting.
Absolutely.
All right. The best one. Who makes the best candidate for a secretary? Well, go ahead. Start out first asking a former secretary because they have firsthand knowledge on what should be known and what it should take to be successful as a secretary. If our brotherhood ensures to bring in members that meet the qualifications and standards of what it means to be a Freemason, any lodge member should be able to be successful as a secretary. Think about that as you consider individuals for membership, as this is true for all lodge officers. A secretary should be self-driven, adaptive to change, organized, and know how to work well with people. They should hold the highest standards.
All right. So that takes us full circle back to the wheel, where again, the outer rim of the wheel are tenets of Freemasonry. In the center, we have an individual lodge brother, and connecting the spokes of this wheel are the different offices of the lodge. And here we see the secretary connecting a lodge member with the tenet of brotherhood. And this is done through communication. The secretary facilitates the communication between the lodge, between lodges, but between members. Say I'm looking for our worshipful master's phone number. I can contact the secretary and he hopefully will have it and I can get a hold of him. The secretary, through communication, lets members know of different events that are going on through the lodge, when we're meeting, when degrees are happening. In theory, they'll be happening again here at some point, and we'll all be having dinners, and that will be fantastic, and we won't all be meeting through Zoom. So that is how the lodge secretary keeps its members and facilitates the tenets of brotherhood. That takes us to the end of our presentation. We deliberately kept it a little shorter because we figured the Q&A section might run quite long. So thank you all. And with that,
Well, great presentation. We do have one question out there that's kind of been answered, but it's worth mentioning out loud here. And that's from Worship Brother Larry Lyman. will Grandview eventually be able to receive monies for dues? And there is a way to connect a PayPal account to Grandview to allow members to pay their dues. As far as the charge goes, I want to say, I can't remember exactly what the added charge is. It comes out to be something like 30 cents or something. Anybody know that for sure? I believe it's a lower percentage because of the kind of organization. Does anybody have any other questions? Thank you, Stephen. 2 3/4% plus 30 cents. Okay. I had a question, I forgot. One thing you'll know in Grandview is it looks like the Grand Lodge is adding more and more resources to Grandview. So if you haven't looked at it in a while, there's a lot more links being added as time goes on. Oh, here we go. Our annual return is going to be done in Grandview this year.
The Worshipful Brothers, Dudek and Thompson, I didn't hear the comment, Justin smiling, how much your job is a thankless job sometimes from the lodge, per se. So I just want to say that was a good presentation, brethren. And truly, you guys sometimes do help the lodges a lot with helping a master with his 1-year term. Everybody knows that's been around the masonry knows the secretaries are a vital component. Very good job, brethren. Thank you.
Right, worshipful brother Keith, will you be able to answer that question? Oh, I'm having trouble with your mute button. Yes, annual returns.
There we go. I'm back.
Oh, there you go. I'll
Yes.
let you.
Annual returns. We have draft returns that are currently live in your administrative dashboards. We've been working through some adjustments that needed to be made. First year, new system. There's always going to be a few quirks along the way. If you're a lodge secretary, please do take a look. And if you notice anything out of sorts, send me an email. It's pretty quick adjustments. Most of the time, the issues are either old officer lists or old member adjustments that are showing up in the current year, and it's all pertaining to the data migration. We moved things over in batches, and when we went back and did adjustments to a member's record to add an affiliation with this lodge or a previous membership transfer somewhere, that showed up as a reporting event in 2020. So we need to wipe those out. We did a first pass, but there's still a few lingering issues. If you notice anything, let us know and we'll fix it. But it should be pretty good at this point.
Thank you. Don, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question for Keith. For the annual report, do we need to do both the paper and the Grandview version of this, or just Grandview? Would just Grandview be enough?
You only need to do one version. You take your pick based on what is working best for you. The other thing I didn't mention before is make sure the per capita number matches. If it doesn't, go with the per capita number on the printed copy we mailed you. I guarantee you that one's right. The Grandview one, there's a couple of lodges where the number's still off by 1 or 2 guys. The numbers work, but the per capita math's a little off.
Question. With that annual report thing that's a draft, is that really workable now that you can make changes on? Because I tried it, I couldn't get anything to work.
Well, the changes aren't actually made in the return draft. The changes are made in the system. You go make your membership changes in Grandview's dashboard for your membership. and it automatically compiles to the return report itself.
I look to be adding some new affiliations on that. And the answer I get back at Grandview is to call you.
Yep.
There's some,
And you should call me. Call me first thing Monday morning and we'll talk about it.
oh, okay.
Okay, we have a question. Is there a step-by-step process for non-payment of dues?
Yes, that's covered in G8 of the Minnesota Masonic Code.
Okay.
I don't think it gives enough detail though to really know what the expectations are. I know I saw
In what
something.
regard? It's a member becomes delinquent if he hasn't paid his dues after December 31st.
Mhm. A full year. He's a full year delinquent, basically.
A full year.
Yeah.
And he's delinquent. And then the lodge can initiate action to strike him for NPD 4 months thereafter, which I believe is April. And you are required to give him 30 days notice of the vote. So the first opportunity you have to strike somebody would be May after he becomes delinquent.
Minnesota code requires that dues are due January 1st of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything available for financing, auditing, annual reviews of the finances? I'm guessing through Grandview.
Through Grandview, I know one of the growing pains Nelson had gone through was trying to understand, it said in our bylaws that we were the financial committee, which was made up of the treasurer, the secretary, and the worshipful master elect was to do a financial audit review and present that to the lodge within the first quarter of his term. And going back and reviewing those bylaws and seeing that, we really couldn't find anything in our archives. So it took, I'd say, probably 3 or 4 years for us to kind of get a process established. I was just curious if there is something that does exist, if this has happened in other lodges, if they've used that type of question.
Our bylaws state that we should have one of the wardens suggested the senior warden with 3 members of the finance committee not being the master or the secretary to be with the treasurer, and the treasurer not head the finance committee. A minimum of 3 is what our bylaws, our working bylaws state.
All right, we got a question from Stephen Ingram. I have tried to fill out a form on Grandview, now let me enter. Could you elaborate on that a little more? What kind of form were you filling out?
Hi, on the year-end report, the draft that's in there, the last page of it shows where you have to put your financial stuff in there for what your building is worth, and it won't let me enter anything into that.
Yes.
Is that still a draft, or does the original, or does the final one come out tomorrow at midnight, or how does that work?
Well, so the process works like this. After January 1st, once you've gotten all your membership changes in and your draft return looks correct from a membership perspective, there's a big blue button that says submit and close. You'll print a copy of the full return and you'll actually handwrite in the financial information, sign and seal on the last page, and submit it to us with your per capita check.
Okay, so it doesn't get when we hit submit, then it doesn't go to Grandview. We have to print
closes
it.
to Grandview, and we'll see it, but it will also generate an invoice for your per capita. And
Okay.
the Minnesota Masonic Code and the Grand Lodge of Minnesota still requires that you submit a signed and sealed copy of your return.
Okay, fair enough. And then the next question is that when I look at the list of our officers, it's from a year or 2 ago.
Yep. Have you entered your new certificate of election?
I have entered the, I believe that I have, yes. I have entered the election date and who was elected. But I
Have you
have not,
installed?
and not, we won't install until January 4.
And that's the reason. It
Okay.
won't pick up it won't pick up your new officers until you install them. And it's pulling old officers because we didn't have a certificate of election for 2020, just based on when we imported data. So it's just it's grabbing whatever happens to be in there. Once you install your new officers, it will grab the latest list.
All right, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
This is Terry Tilton. Evolith is not meeting and plans an in-person installation, and we will not have one in January, the way it sounds. It may be February or March, or maybe later, and we will not be able to install officers. So how is our report going to be completed?
We'll have to work on that one with the Secretary of the Lodge.
All right, so you're going to do it individually with each lodge then? I'm sure we're not alone in that.
You're pretty unusual in that. Most lodges that have elected officers have installed either in person or by Zoom. You're going to need dispensation from the Grand Master to push it back too much further than your first stated meeting in January.
All right. We'll let the secretary worry about that.
Yeah, and that's what he's there for.
Wait, actually, I think we just did a presentation on how that's not the secretary's duty, but in your case, it might be. It's lodge by
Well,
lodge. And at my lodge, that's not my job.
Dispensation's one of those,
Well, that's true.
kind of covers both guys.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
There's a question about per capita from Jacob down in Winona. Per capita is based on, so per capita that's due to the Grand Lodge on January 15th of 2021 is based on your 12/31 membership number of 2019. There's a 12-month lag in per capita payments. That's why we tell you to not change the number at the top of the form.
Any other questions?
What? I guess I've got one, oddly enough. So there's no requirement when striking members for MPD to have a verified communication like a signed receipt from mail or something, as long as an attempt has been made.
Certified letter.
I have that provision of that section of the code pulled up.
Oh, fantastic.
The secretary shall notify the member by U.S. mail at his last known address of the amount of delinquent dues, and that at the communication named in the notice, a motion will be made to strike his name from the roll. Such letter shall constitute proof of service. There you go.
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be a certified mail. It just needs to be by mail.
Correct.
Correct. Awesome.
And again, that's section G8.01 of the general regulations.
Any other questions? Oh, I forgot to put up the poll. Please take time to fill out the poll. We're still open for questions if anything pops up. Yeah, one thing I've reminded our master is I'm more of a whisper in the ear counsel than a decision maker. You know, I'd say, well, decision's up to you. You got to make the decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will give my opinion if asked, but I try not to.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention is all these Better Beehive presentations, they are available. Like I said, they're through the Grand Lodge website. There's a video archive, or they've all been posted on the eBasin. So it would be a great idea to have the officers in your lodges actually watch the ones dedicated to their position. So keep that as a reminder. Some extracurricular activity is watch the presentation for their position. And go ahead and stop the recording, but